Hello, this is clone number 3. I'm recording here. Give me that thing. You don't know even how to work this stupid device, because you're just a cowboy. Well, excuse me. Look, we got trapped into this place somewhere. I don't know exactly where we are. I'm just hoping it's all a bad nightmare, but if anybody's listening to this recording, please help us. Yeah, because I really don't want to be with clone number 2 because he's very annoying. He's got that really graspy voice. Oh, you're one to talk. Well, you're annoying because of that weird southern accent. You need to be a tough man like me. Well, excuse me, but wherever we're at right now, we don't have time to bicker because you know what? We're surrounded by ghosts. You understand? We need to do something. Well, we're not Ghostbusters, or we're not like Luigi from Luigi's Mansion. We don't even have any weapons to deal with these ghosts. Look, if anybody is out there, please, if you receive this recording, please help us. And please do not contact clone number 1. He's just an idiot. I mean, you could contact clone number 4, but he speaks Spanish, so I don't think he's going to understand much Japanese or even English for that matter.
Hello and welcome to another review episode. Today we are reviewing the threequel of this series, a horror series called So Fatal Frame 3 came out 2 years after the second game, and while it got some good reviews and all that, it kind of also started to also get less noticed by the public because by that point Resident Evil 4 came out. Same year that it came out was when Resident Evil 4 came out, and the horror genre for video games was taking a different route. Instead of it being your typical tank controls and trying to evade enemies and also trying to survive specific creatures or zombies or even Fatal Frame standards, ghosts, Resident Evil took it to an action approach, which most of the people decided to go to that, the action approach. So with Resident Evil 4's success, Fatal Frame 3, along with Haunting Ground and a few other horror games, like Kuon for example, they all started to kind of fade away to more of an obscure video game. However, though, I was able to at least get the third Fatal Frame game, which now it's a little expensive. They're going up in price. But after I finished playing the third game, after beating the first one and second one, even though I kind of jumped around on those, what do I think of the third installment in the last of the trilogy for the PS2? Well, that's why you're here. Today, we're jumping in to Fatal Frame for the third time. And yes, I need to bring my camera obscure again. Because you never know, we Flow number 3, are you doing that? We follow a new character called Ray. In the very start of the game, Ray is in a car crash, losing her husband. She suffers through depression after the loss of her husband. 2 months later, she soon gets involved in studying an abandoned mansion that is supposed to be haunted. She's also a freelance photographer. Freelance photography. Well, I'm also a photographer myself. Her assistant, Miku, the character from the first game, is helping her out in this abandoned mansion, but she starts to see things in a daydream sort of viewpoint. Like, for example, her deceased husband. And soon, it will become more than just a daydream. Oh boy. You will play as 3 characters: Ray, Miku, and Kei, or Kai, or a little bit of both, I don't know. Kei is another character that relates to Miyu from the second game. Most of these characters will connect in this so-called nightmare, where they must fight off against ghosts and solve problems in the dream world. But whatever happens in the dream world can affect the real world. Well, not to the extent of like into the world. No. There's a specific ghost that will touch them and give them a tattoo. And the tattoo actually affects them in real life after they wake up from a dream. It will kill them due to a specific tattooed woman in the dream that will infect anybody, which will spirit them away. These three characters need to figure out a way to get out of this situation through this nightmare. Otherwise, they'll die. This whole concept of being in a dream world and then being affected by the real world after waking up, jeez, this kind of reminds me of something. Oh. But the third one is set in the 1980s, around the time Nightmare on Elm Street, or multiple Nightmare on Elm Streets were coming out. Coincidence?
I think not.
Now, for the characters in here, well, we know Miku from the first game, but I would like to talk about these new characters that we get to see in action. I will get back to Miku in just a sec. Rei is probably the most interesting character so far in the Fatal Frame universe, seeing how she suffers the loss of her husband, and how she has to go through it, and her depressing part of it. This is what drags her into this situation, due to the loss and sorrow of her husband's death. Yeah, like even Miu, because of the camera obscure. So basically everybody's a photographer. So yeah, I can relate to that. Learning how to use a camera and take photos, except with ghosts. But we also get to see a little bit more of Miku's personality. Because in the first game, all we knew about her is that she was a determined sister, a badass to go into a scary, dark mansion to search for her brother that went missing. But that was about it. Here, we get to see more of how she acts in day-to-day life, and what she does. And Kei is connected with Mio from the second game, so that's pretty interesting. He also had connections with Rei's fiancé alongside Miku's brother. So by this point, both games are all coming in one group. And that's what's pretty cool. By the time I was playing this game and I was seeing all these characters come together from the previous games, it kind of reminded me of a specific film series. Night Shyamalan's movies. Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. That's kind of the gist I got with this game, because they just all come together for the final chapter on the PS2. And I gotta say, it's pretty cool, and especially after you played the previous games. All in all, the story is impactful, just like most Fatal Frame games. I also just like the final conclusion to this franchise, or at least this trilogy on the PS2. And obviously the soundtrack in this game is, it's just as good as in the previous others. While I do think the first game had really creepy music, and then the second game had also creepy music. This too has creepy music, but also sometimes cozy music, at least in the blind room section. But the ending to the game is also pretty catchy too, and impactful, just like in the second game. The gameplay is just as fun as intense as the last two games. Sometimes when you have to solve puzzles or clues, it opens up specific parts of the mansion to explore, which is fun. However, while the gameplay is the same, which it takes both elements from the first and second game and combine them into one gigantic big thing, yeah, I felt like the game mechanics were a little bit different. I know when you play with the camera obscure, it feels a little bit different compared to the second game. The second game felt more like an advance from the first one. This one kind of felt like it was slowly going back to the first one, but also keeping elements of the second game's mechanics with the camera obscure. I think one issue that I really had with this game, I know Silent Hill does this, and I know it can be a drag sometimes, but some people like it. I don't mind the backtracking, but I felt like Fatal Frame 3 had an issue with the backtracking. I felt like it was more of a drag and a little more annoying at points. They either don't give you 100% of the details of where you need to go. They do give you hints when it comes to specific photos that you take to break the spells that are sealing a door. I remember when I played it the first time, it took me a while to finish a specific level, or a few specific levels, or to continue on to the next chapter. To me, this was the issue with the gameplay, because while I do like exploring and fighting to get specific items, and on top of that, seeing familiar places from the previous games. The downside is when you want to get to the next level, you have to follow specific hints that will lead you to the objective. Otherwise, you're backtracking all over the place and they never really give you exactly where you need to go, except for those photos. But on the other hand, sometimes they're sort of not clear to the points where they are kind of clear. Now, some people might like that because of Silent Hill's vibe, because in that game you really needed a thing to solve specific puzzles. It's the same deal here. It's just, I think Fatal Frame is a little more easier, but it's more of trying to figure out where you need to go next. And when you're trying to move and progress, it's a big drag. And after replaying it again for this review, I realized how aggravating it is. Boy, was I getting lost in this game. There was a specific level where the only way you know where specific things are is by looking at a projector. Well, it was a specific level. You had to go to 4 places in the mansion. The projector gave you the clue. But the game ain't going to give you much hints, which, I don't mind that. It's fine. But sometimes that could be a bit aggravating when you're trying to progress. And obviously the one thing that comes back is picking up diaries and folklore books and newspapers and stuff like that to read and get the lore of the story, and you will find them interesting if it's your first time playing. On the other hand, you could also take pictures in the dream world, which you could develop in the real world. After you do that, you could give it to Miku and she will dig up some information on the photos. So that's pretty cool. Now for the gameplay mechanics. The camera is kind of the same position, fixed camera angles. But sometimes if you walk in a specific area in different places of the mansion, the camera gets closer to you. The controllers also seemed fine. The only difference is that the buttons are maybe a little different when it comes to the camera. Inventory, you get the same ones you did in the first and second game. And you can upgrade your camera. Like the other games, bada bing bada boom. Though probably new features if I can recall. The cool part about this game is when you play the 3 characters, they all have different quirks. Miku can slow time down. Kay can hide. Rei, she has her stuff. Different abilities to use against ghosts, slowing them down, and heck, there's even one that's like a shotgun effect. All in all, these abilities will help you fight against ghosts. The menu doesn't offer much, but after you beat the game and load your save file, there is a whole new different menu screen with extra features like missions, which were turns, and you could also change the character's clothing. Now, as for replay value, like I said, once you beat it the first time, you could go back and replay it again to get another ending, which is a little more clear at what happens to everything. Or, I don't want to say too much. Let's just say it's more clear. It gives you an opening to see the view of what happened. Also, you have all these things here in the second menu, like the mission mode, changing the characters' costumes, and also watching some trailers. You could also save some pictures that you've taken in the game to an album, though I did not have enough memory, so sadly I could not save it. Now, another thing you could also do in this game is listen to tape recordings, which is actually pretty cool to listen to, where you're hearing people go through the same situation that your character and Miku is going through, and even what Kay is going through. It's just interesting to hear these tape recordings. It's pretty creepy where they talk about specific things that are going on with them, what they're seeing in the dream, and you're having the same experience.
Sacrifices, more blood.
Well, Fatal Frame 3. I gotta say, I really liked this game when I played it the first time. Playing it a second time, I still do like it. I like the first one. It's a decent game for basically a start of the series. Decent game. Second one is great because it improves so much. The third one is, I don't know, like, there are things about it that I really like.
I do want to pause here for a pre-recording. I think the one thing I should mention that people are going to have issues with this game is the backtracking, but it's more of not being clear where to go when you're solving puzzles. That's the downgrade with at least the third game, is that it's harder and more aggravating to figure everything out. In the end, I had to look up stuff, so that's my one con with this game, is just figuring out where you have to go to proceed through this game and continue the plot.
I actually do think this was a really nice conclusion to at least the PS2 trilogy of Fatal Frame. If you like Fatal Frame 2, you're going to like this one. And it also brings all these characters together. On top of that, Ray is an interesting character, and Miku has more personality. I like all that. I mean, on top of that, I liked both Fatal Frame 1 and 2 coming together in Fatal Frame 3 to wrap it up. That was fun. Overall, I think it's a good threequel. If you like the other previous games, you're going to like Fatal Frame 3. That's for sure. Especially with all the characters coming together. Pretty cool. Well, that's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this review episode of Fatal Frame 3. If you like what you saw here, follow me. I've also reviewed the other 2 Fatal Frames. And on top of that, if you want to talk about Fatal Frame, you can leave a comment down below. You could also tell me how much you like the Fatal Frame series or how much you hate it. Bada bing, bada boom. Which is better, Silent Hill or Fatal Frame? Anyways. Clones, are you there?
I couldn't move. My butt was getting itchy. Thanks for freeing me.